I think, we don't want to take up too much of your time. This has been amazing. You've pretty much broken Clubhouse. There are probably about like over a dozen, maybe more overflow rooms. And I see so many Twitter trends right now. You've been so generous. For all your listeners here and on Twitter, you've been asking for people to join Neuralink. You've been asking people to join Tesla. Do you have any final thoughts for everybody who's listening to you right now?
Well, do you want to hear the real story from Vlad from Robinhood about what happened this week with GameStop?
Uh, sure, go for it.
Okay, you need to let him somehow click on a button so he can talk.
All right, let me figure this out.
While we're figuring it out, Elon, why don't you talk to us about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, since you mentioned that right at the beginning?
Yeah, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams is in fact a book of philosophy disguised as a silly humor book. And if you read it from the standpoint of, wow, this is an interesting book of philosophy, it's quite insightful. As mentioned, he really hits on the point of the answer is easy once you can properly formulate the question. I like the fact that the ship is powered by infinite improbability. It's called the Heart of Gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's he makes fun of bureaucracy. In fact, Earth essentially gets destroyed by a sort of clerical error or by the alien. Essentially, but not even clerical error. They basically decide that they need to have an interstellar highway, and that Earth's in the way, and so they post the fact that Earth needs to get destroyed for this interstellar highway. But of course, it's posted on an alien bulletin board that no one on Earth can access, and so then they're surprised when people on Earth are unhappy about this. It's like, it was posted on the board. What do you mean? Like, what board? Some of the things in Doug Adams' book, like the Babel fish, where you put the fish in your ear that automatically translates, we kind of have that already. Yeah, I mean, the future is coming fast.
Elon, okay. Vlad, can you hear us?
Vlad the Stock Impaler.
Hey guys, thanks for inviting me up. It's good to hang with all of you.
All right, Vlad, what really happened? Give us the inside scoop.
All right. Well, I was actually hoping that you would invite me up for the Fermi paradox part, because this has been a very surreal weekend and week for me. One of the really great things is all the people coming out of the woodwork to offer support for the company, offer advice. So I got introduced today. And actually, I should say I just randomly downloaded Clubhouse a couple of days ago just to see what it was all about. So this is my first time literally using the app. But yeah, I got introduced to your friend Antonio, Elon, who had some good advice for me, and then introduced me to you. You had some great advice. And then I figured, I heard about this Clubhouse, and this has got to be part of the simulation. So I just thought, why not? So here I am. So I'm actually an adherent to the simulation hypothesis.
All right. Well, spill the beans, man. What happened last week? Why do you stop people? Why couldn't people buy GameStop shares? The people demand an answer, and they want to know the details and the truth.
Yep. Okay. So let me start by giving a little bit of background. So I'm the chief executive of Robinhood. Robinhood's actually a I'll go through this quickly. Don't worry. This is important. It's actually a couple of companies. So there's an introducing broker dealer called Robinhood Financial, and that basically is the app that you know and love. It processes trades. You're a customer of Robinhood Financial. Then there's a clearing broker dealer, Robinhood Securities, that clears and settles the trades. And then we have Robinhood Crypto, which is our crypto business. all of which, all of these are kind of different entities that are differently operated. So basically Wednesday of last week, we just had, unprecedented volume, unprecedented load on the system. A lot of these, so-called meme stocks were, going viral on social media, and people were joining Robinhood, and there was a lot of net buy activity on them, as you guys all know. And Robinhood at this time, I think, was #1 on the iOS App Store, and pretty close, if not #1 on Google Play as well. So just unprecedented activity. Yeah. And so Thursday morning, right? So I'm sleeping, but at 3:30 a.m. Pacific, our operations team receives a file from the NSCC, which is the National Securities Clearing Corporation. So basically, as a broker, as a clearing broker, and this is where Robinhood Securities comes in, we have to put up money to the NSCC based on some factors, including things like the volatility of the trading activity, concentration into certain securities, and this is the equities business, so it's based on stock trading and not options trading or anything else. So they gave us a file with a deposit, and the request was around $3 billion, which is, about an order of magnitude more than what it typically is, right? So,
no. Why was that so high? Like, this seems like it sounds like this is an unprecedented increase in demand for capital. What formula did they use to calculate that?
Well, yeah, and just to give context, Robinhood up until that point has raised, a little bit, around $2 billion in total venture capital up until now. So it's a big number. Like $3 billion is a large number, right? So basically the details are, we don't have the full details. It's a little bit of an opaque formula, but there's a component called the VAR of it, which is value at risk, and that's based on kind of some fairly quantitative things, although it's not fully transparent. So there are ways to reverse engineer it, but it's not kind of publicly shared. And then there's a special component, which is discretionary. So that kind of acts as a multiplier, and basically
discretionary meaning like it's just their opinion.
Yeah, it's a little bit. I mean, I'm sure there's definitely more than just their opinion, but basically,
well, I mean, I guess
based
like
on growth.
What everyone wants to know is like, did something maybe shady go down here? It's like, it seems weird that you'd get a sudden $10 billion demand.
$3 billion.
3 in the morning. Sorry, how much?
It was $3 billion US.
$3 billion. Okay,
yeah,
$3 billion
around.
Just suddenly out of nowhere. And what percentage?
I wouldn't impute shadiness to it or anything like that.
Okay.
And actually, the NSCC was reasonable subsequent to this, and they worked with us to actually lower it. So it was unprecedented activity. I don't have the full context about what was going on in the NSCC to make these calculations, but yeah, essentially it was a large number.
Is anyone holding you hostage right now?
No, I'm okay.
Blink twice.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. But anyway, so this was obviously nerve-wracking, and I actually was asleep at this point. The operations team was fielding this at 3:00, and then we got back, we put our heads together. Our chief operating officer basically said, "Look, let's call up the higher ups at the NSCC and kind of figure out what's going on. Maybe there's some way we can work with them." And basically, there was another call, and they lowered it to something like $1.4 billion from 3. So, okay, we were making some progress, right? And then, but it's still a high number. And then we basically proposed, well, let's explain how we plan to, let's explain how, we'll manage risk in these symbols throughout the day. We proposed marking these volatile stocks that were kind of driving the activity, position closing only. And then at about an hour before market open, so 5:30 or 5 in the morning, they came back and they said, okay, the charge is, or the deposit, 700 million, which we then deposited and paid promptly, and then everything was fine. So that essentially explains why we had to mark these symbols position closing only, and also why we knew this was a bad outcome for customers. Part of what's been really difficult is Robinhood stands for democratizing access to stocks, and we want to give people the access. So that's been very, very challenging. But we had no choice in this case. We had to conform to our regulatory capital requirements, and so the team did what they could to make sure we were available for customers.
Who controls this organization, this clearinghouse?
It's a consortium. It's not quite a government agency. I don't really know the details of all of that. But and to be fair, like we were I think there was legitimate sort of turmoil in the markets. Like, these are unprecedented events with these meme stocks, and there was a lot of activity. So there probably is some amount of extra risk in the system that warrants higher requirements. So it's not entirely unreasonable. But we did operational processes to make sure that customers that had positions could sell their open positions, because obviously restricting someone, we got a lot of questions about, okay, you had to restrict buying, why didn't you also restrict selling? And the fact of the matter is, people get really pissed off if they're holding stock and they want to sell it and they can't, right? So I think that's categorically worse. So and lots of other brokers, I think, were in the same situation. Robinhood was in the news, but you sort of heard this industry wide, right? Other brokers basically restricted the same exact activity.
All right, so it sounds like this organization calls you up and they basically have a gun to your head, either hand over this money or else. And so, because basically what people are wondering is, like, did you sell your clients down the river, or do you have no choice? And if you had no choice, that's understandable. But then, we got to find out why you had no choice, and who are these people that are saying you have no choice?
Yeah, I think that's fair. We have to comply with these requirements. Financial institutions have requirements. The formula behind these requirements, I think it would obviously be ideal if there was a little bit more transparency so we could plan better around that. But to be fair, we were able to open and serve our customers, and 24 hours later, our team raised over $1 billion in capital, so that when we did open, when we do open tomorrow morning, we'll be able to kind of relax the stringent position limits that we put on these securities on Friday.
Will there be any limits?
Well, I think there's always going to be some theoretical limit. Like, we don't have infinite capital, right? And on Friday there were limits. So there's always going to have to be some limit. I think the question is, will the limits be high enough to the point where they won't impact 99.9%+ of customers. So, if someone were to deposit $100 billion and decide to trade in one stock like that, that wouldn't be possible,
All right. All right. Well, I guess people really just want to know, if you had no choice, then you had no choice. It's gun to head situation, and then that's understandable. But then whoever put that gun to your head should, be willing to answer to the public.
Yeah, listen, and I know there's processes. This is unprecedented times, and to be fair to those guys, they've been reasonable. So we are. I think the one thing that is maybe not clear to people is Robinhood's a participant in the financial system, so we have to work with all of these counterparties. So we do get a lot of questions about, why do you work with market makers? Why do you work with clearing houses? Vertically integrating and getting, it's hard enough to build introducing and a clearing broker dealer. Not too many people have done that, but the financial system that allows customers to trade shares is sort of a complex web of multiple parties, and it's hard to. I think everyone says, oh, it could be better, it could be improved. It's just the necessity of trading equities in the U.S. that you have to do all these things.
To what degree are you beholden to Citadel? Like basically, if Citadel's unhappy, then what happens?
Yeah, so that there was a rumor that Citadel or other market makers kind of pressured us into doing this, and that's just false, right? Market makers execute our trades. They execute trades of every broker dealer. This was a clearinghouse. This was a clearinghouse decision, and it was just based on the capital requirements. So, from our perspective, Citadel and other market makers weren't involved in that.
But wouldn't they have a strong say in who got put in charge of that organization, since it's an industry consortium, not a government consortium, or not a government regulatory agency?
I don't have any reason to believe that. I think that's just like, then you're getting into kind of the conspiracy theories a little bit. So I just have no reason to believe that that's the case,
Okay. All right. Well, I guess so we'll see what happens with future actions. Hopefully that was insightful, or at least a little bit entertaining. Are you not entertained?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know what to say. First of all, Vlad, thank you so much for jumping on. I know it's pretty late, and thank you so much. Deeply, I deeply appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone in the audience here and watching elsewhere deeply appreciate it. So thank you so much. We really appreciate this. I'm going to wrap this up. Elon, what can I say? Thank you so much. I hope you had a fun time for your first time on Clubhouse. Did you have fun?
Yeah, it's great. This is awesome. I didn't even know it existed a week ago, so it seems cool.
Awesome. So would you come back?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, and also thank you everyone for listening. And I know we went way over, Elon. Elon, we every time we do this show, we try and pick a song that fits the person we're interviewing. So I'm going to play us out of the show with a song that I think you might like. Gary.